Right. So today we're diving into the wild world of online content creation.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at the career of Felix Arvid Ulf Kolsberg,
Right.
better known to most of you out there as PewDiePie.
Right.
You flagged his Wikipedia page for us, and honestly, it's an incredibly fascinating document.
It is.
It's really like a roadmap of the last, what, 10 plus years of online video?
Yeah, more than a decade, yeah.
So we're going to be charting, his key milestones kind of from the very beginning all the way to the present day.
Okay.
To really understand the evolution of one of YouTube's biggest stars.
Yeah.
And what his journey actually tells us about this whole content creation world.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what makes PewDiePie's story so interesting is that it really does kind of mirror the development of online video as we know it.
Yeah.
So by tracing his trajectory, we can gain some really valuable insights into how someone builds a massive audience online.
Right.
How they navigate all those inevitable shifts in online culture, and how they stay relevant in a landscape that's constantly changing.
Totally. Yeah. So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
Felix was born in Gothenburg, Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
back in October 1989.
Okay.
And it's interesting. His initial path seemed pretty traditional.
Mm.
He enrolled at Chalmers University of Technology
Yeah.
to study industrial economics and technology management.
It does sound pretty standard, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty standard route.
It does,
Right.
which makes his later pivot so noteworthy.
Yeah.
In 2011, he decided that academic study wasn't really for him. He
Right.
said it was too boring.
Uh-huh.
And he decided to go after his passion for creating videos online.
Yeah.
And to actually support himself. During those early days, he was selling hot dogs and doing photo editing.
That's amazing.
Which highlights that commitment, that real hustle
Yeah.
required to break into a field that was so new.
It's that early hustle that's key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to look at someone with, millions of subscribers.
Right.
And forget those initial, kind of less glamorous stages. So in October 2010,
Okay.
the PewDiePie channel was born.
Yeah.
And his initial focus was on Let's Play videos,
Right.
which are basically him playing video games and providing commentary.
Yeah.
Usually in a pretty lively and engaging way.
Right.
And, the fact that he was doing this in English all the way from Sweden,
Yeah.
that undoubtedly broadened his potential audience from the very start.
For sure broadened his reach. Yeah. And that focus on Let's Plays, you have to remember, this was tapping into a community online
Yeah.
of gamers who were just, coming into their own right.
Yeah.
And people enjoyed watching others play for different reasons.
Wow.
Some wanted to see, how a game progressed. Some wanted to get a different perspective on the game. And some just really wanted to see the entertainment value of the commentator.
Yeah.
And his energetic style, his humor,
Right.
his reactions clearly resonated with that audience.
Yeah.
And that laid the foundation for this, incredible growth he had.
It was rapid growth.
It was-
the subscriber numbers he achieved were unprecedented.
Yeah.
He was the first to cross so many of these major milestones, like 20 million, 30 million, all the way to 90 million subscribers.
Yeah. That's mind-boggling.
It's really hard to even visualize that many people
Yeah.
tuning in regularly.
Yeah.
So in your view, what was it about his early content that allowed him to connect with such a massive audience?
Well, I think you have to remember it wasn't just about playing games. It
Right.
was about the personality that he brought
Yeah,
to
no.
those playthroughs.
Yeah.
He really created this connection with the viewers,
Yeah.
almost as if they were hanging out with a friend.
Right.
His energetic reactions, his sometimes over-the-top humor,
Yeah.
and that feeling of authenticity that he always had
Yeah.
really drew people in.
Right.
And plus, the Let's Play format itself was very accessible, especially for, a generation that was growing up with games.
Absolutely.
And his frequent uploads also played a role, in the way that the YouTube algorithm worked at the time.
Yeah.
So that helped with discoverability.
Yeah. And that personal connection seemed to be a recurring theme, with successful online creators.
It really does.
So in December 2016, he reached 50 million subscribers,
Wow.
which was a huge moment.
Yeah.
And YouTube actually sent him the first Ruby Play button.
Oh, wow.
For those who might not know.
Right.
These are like physical awards that YouTube gives out
Mm-hmm.
at different subscriber milestones.
Yeah, and I think those awards aren't just trophies.
Right.
They're a direct recognition from the platform itself
Mm-hmm.
of a creator's achievement,
Yeah.
and the massive community that they've built.
Yeah.
So to reach 50 million was just a clear indication of his his continued popularity
Right.
and influence within this YouTube ecosystem.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's that monumental 100 million subscriber mark
Oh, yeah.
on August 24, 2019.
Huge.
A truly historic moment in the history of the platform.
Yeah.
So he actually held the title of world's largest YouTube channel for a significant period.
Yeah.
From August 2013 to April 2019.
Right.
But it wasn't, completely unchallenged.
Right.
The Wikipedia page notes a couple of brief periods where YouTube Spotlight and then later T-Series actually overtook him.
Yeah, and that just shows you right even at the very top.
Yeah.
Online popularity is so dynamic.
Right.
It's so competitive.
Yeah, it's not a static achievement.
Oh.
It really requires constant engagement and adaptation.
It does, and I think the fact that YouTube's own channel and then a massive media company like T-Series could briefly surpass him underscores the different forces at play.
Right.
On these platforms, you have individual creators, you have corporations, you have the platform itself, and they're all vying for that audience attention.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into, this whole PewDiePie versus T-Series saga, which became a huge talking point online.
It did.
So back in October 2018, he releases Bitch Lasagna.
Yes.
Which was let's call it a strongly worded song aimed at T-Series.
Yeah.
Which is an Indian film and music channel that was experiencing just explosive subscriber growth.
Right.
So in your view, what do you think fueled this rivalry?
Well, I think it was a fascinating kind of confluence of different factors. On one level, it was a battle for the top spot on the world's biggest video platform.
Right.
But it also, I think, represented a cultural shift with this Western individual creator facing competition from a massive entertainment industry in India.
Yeah.
And the diss track itself was so direct and provocative.
Yeah.
It tapped into the existing fan base and also generated so much attention, both positive and negative.
Yeah, it definitely captured people's attention.
It did.
And T-Series actually overtook him a couple of times.
It did.
In early 2019.
Right.
And then in March of that year, he releases Congratulations,
Oh,
which was almost a satirical celebration of T-Series' anticipated victory.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that video seemed to really galvanize his supporters.
Right.
And he briefly regained the lead in early April.
Wow. So it was like a real-time battle.
It was.
For online supremacy.
Yeah. And I think it just demonstrates the power of online communities and how quickly things can influence subscriber counts.
It does.
Congratulations, with that humor and those references.
Yeah.
Clearly resonated with his audience.
Yeah.
But ultimately, as the Wikipedia entry points out,
right.
T-Series surpassed him definitively.
They did.
In mid-April 2019.
Right.
And has built a significant lead since then.
Yeah.
And I think this really underscored the growing global nature of YouTube and the increasing prominence of content from these diverse international sources.
Yeah, absolutely.
So while all this was happening with the subscriber counts, his actual content was evolving too.
Yeah.
He started with those Let's Play videos, but then shifted more towards these funny clip compilations, internet memes, often with his own comedic commentary.
Right.
So why do you think he made this shift?
Well, I think a few things were going on.
Yeah.
First, the Let's Play landscape was getting crowded.
Yeah.
So, by diversifying, he could tap into these broader internet trends and appeal to a wider audience. Secondly, I think creators often evolve their interests and formats over time.
Right.
And moving towards this meme commentary and funny clips might have just felt fresher, more creatively fulfilling after years of, primarily playing video games.
Yeah, and I think that adaptability is crucial.
It is.
For long-term relevance online.
For sure.
It's remarkable how his influence extended beyond just his own channel, though.
It is.
The Wikipedia page actually mentions that his mentions of video games often led to significant increases in their sales.
It's true.
Game developers were actively seeking his coverage.
Wow.
That's the kind of influence many traditional media outlets would envy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in the early days of indie game development.
Yeah.
a positive mention from PewDiePie
right.
could make or break a game. It was transformative.
Yeah.
You know, his direct connection to millions of gamers gave him so much power as a tastemaker, as someone who could actually drive sales.
Yeah.
And I think it also highlights this emergence of influencer marketing as a major force in the digital economy. You know, it's not just about traditional ads anymore.
Absolutely.
It's about these individuals who have these massive online followings.
Totally. So beyond his online persona, the Wikipedia entry gives us a few glimpses into his personal life.
It does.
His marriage to Marcia Bisonian, who was also a well-known YouTube personality as Cutie Pie Marcia.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty significant part of his life.
Yeah.
They met back in 2011.
Wow.
Married in 2019.
Right.
And they lived together in Brighton in the UK for a while.
Yeah.
And we can't forget his pugs, Edgar and Maya.
Oh, of course not.
Who have been, frequent and beloved features in his videos.
You're great.
I think these personal details really help to humanize.
I agree.
The online figure.
Yeah.
Sharing aspects of his life outside of those videos. Creates this deeper connection with his audience.
Absolutely.
And his long-term relationship with Marcia.
Yeah.
Their shared experience, in the online world.
Yeah.
And the presence of his pets. All contribute to a much more relatable image.
Yeah.
He later moved to Japan in 2022.
Okay.
And then the birth of his son, Bjorn, in 2023.
Wow.
Just represents these further, significant personal milestones.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we have to address the controversies.
Right.
The Wikipedia page doesn't shy away from these at all.
No.
And they've been, pretty significant moments in his career.
Yeah.
Really prompting a lot of discussion about the responsibilities of online creators.
Yeah.
So in September 2017, there's the incident with the racial slur during a live stream.
Yeah.
Which understandably generated a lot of criticism.
Of course.
Yeah. And incidents like that, along with, those earlier instances of jokes that were widely considered anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
I mean, they really highlight the potential for harm that can come from online content. Even when it's not intended maliciously.
Even when it's not intentional.
Yeah.
The impact can be real.
Yeah. And these controversies had real-world consequences.
Yeah.
The cancellation of his YouTube Red series. The loss of sponsorships.
Yeah.
It really demonstrates that accountability that comes with having such a large platform.
Right. Your words have power.
They do.
When you have that kind of reach.
Yeah. And then perhaps the most serious incident mentioned was in March 2019, when the Christchurch mosque shooter referenced subscribing to PewDiePie's channel during a live stream of the attacks.
Right.
And it's crucial to note that PewDiePie immediately and publicly condemned the shooter's actions.
Yes, he did.
And expressed his condolences to the victims.
Right.
But this event really brought to the forefront this complex and sometimes troubling relationship between online fame, influence, and real-world events.
Yeah, that was a particularly disturbing event.
It was.
Because it linked, online content, however tangentially, to an act of extreme violence.
Yeah.
And, while PewDiePie's condemnation was so important, it inevitably raised these questions about, the potential for online personas to be misinterpreted or even weaponized by individuals with these really harmful intentions.
Yeah.
And it underscores, I think, the immense reach and the potential impact, both positive and negative, that these online figures can have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Despite these controversies, it's also important to acknowledge, the recognition he's received throughout his career.
Right.
The Wikipedia entry lists a number of awards.
It does?
Multiple Star Count Social Star Awards.
Yeah.
Shorty Awards. A Teen Choice Award.
Wow.
He even won Golden Joystick Awards for gaming personality.
Yeah, it's impressive.
So despite those challenges, he's clearly resonated with a significant audience and been recognized for his contributions.
Right. And those awards reflect that broad appeal across different segments of the online community, from gaming enthusiasts to general social media users. Yeah. And I think they acknowledge the entertainment value he provided to millions and the connection he forged with his audience over many years, even amidst those periods of controversy.
Right. And then in December 2019, after reaching that massive 100 million subscriber milestone and navigating that intense T-Series competition and, those various controversies, he announces that he's taking a break from YouTube.
He did.
Which seems pretty understandable given the demands of maintaining such a large online presence.
For sure, it's a 247 job.
It is.
And you're constantly in the public eye.
Right.
I think that decision reflects a need for creators to prioritize their own well-being.
Right.
And step back from the constant demands of this, always-on platform.
Absolutely.
Right.
So as we've seen, just through this look at his Wikipedia page, the journey of PewDiePie really does mirror the evolution of online content creation.
It does.
It's the incredible growth, the constant changes in what's popular, the intense competition for attention, and the very real challenges of navigating, these societal issues on such a massive stage, from those early Let's Plays to becoming a global online personality.
Right.
His story provides a fascinating lens through which to view, both the power and the complexity of digital media.
His trajectory highlights, just how dynamic online fame is.
Yeah.
The importance of adapting and the immense influence that individuals can have online.
It is.
It's a compelling case study for anyone who's interested in understanding this world.
It is. So thinking about PewDiePie's remarkable and at times turbulent journey.
Right.
How do you think the role and responsibilities of these major creators will continue to evolve?
That's a good question.
Especially given the influence they have and the potential for controversies.
It's something that's constantly evolving, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, what does his story ultimately tell you?
Yeah.
About the changing nature of fame and influence?
It's a good question for all of us to think about, right?
It is.
As we're all participating in this digital world.
Yeah, it's definitely something to reflect on after this deep dive.
It is.
Thanks for exploring this with us.
My pleasure.
All right.